Okay.
Good morning and thank you for joining us as you're listening to Smooth 98.1. It is time for us to go into detailed analysis of our newspaper stories this morning. It is called Freshly Pressed 981. And that number to send in your messages through WhatsApp is
0809 444 Good morning, Lagos.
and on Twitter, use the hashtag freshlypressed981. This morning, we're joined by a lady and gentleman. We have Adenike Oyetunde in the studio with us.
Yeah.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. I thought you said you didn't know.
Hi, Adenike.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning in spite of the rain. And we have Deveo Okorie, Mr. Cool.
Yeah, so good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, Deveo.
Cool, the economics of
Oh,
Mary
no.
Jane.
Okay, this is a nice prelude. And Bolaho is here in the studio with us. Good morning, Bolaho.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Valentine, and good morning, Ayo.
You can
Good
find
morning.
Bolaho at Mr. G Quest on Twitter. If you want to tweet at us, please remember to add the hashtag freshly pressed 981. And we're also streaming live on YouTube. As we start with our first story, now this one is calling for the release of Leah Sharibu as they mark her birthday today. She was kidnapped along or abducted along with the other girls from Chibok on February 19th, 2018. She's 16 now and still not released after over a year and 3 months. Now, looking at the story from the Guardian newspaper, your thoughts on this, Devo?
It's with great pain that we look at this story because it speaks all about the issues affecting Nigeria in terms of insecurity. We all know the story too well. However, there's a problem when we get used to it or we get desensitized about hearing insecurity issues over and over again.
Mhm.
It doesn't remove the reality and the pains and the burdens that many Nigerians are undergoing at this point, at every point in time that we speak. Leah was abducted in February 2018 alongside her fellow classmates. That was in Dapchi as part of the issues that we were suffering with the insurgency. Now, the federal government did return about 106 of them, remaining about her only and another person I think that wasn't really spoken much about.
Mm.
Alongside, if you remember, the schoolgirl kidnap that took place in Chibok, whereby about over 200 girls were kidnapped as well from their school premises. And I think the federal government at different points in time has been able to return, I think, over about 100 of them.
Mm.
Now, this is coming to fore given the fact that Zainab Aliu, who was returned from Saudi
Saudi
Arabia,
Arabia, yes.
having been accused of the alleged drug trafficking,
Mm.
which the federal government intervened. So
Mm.
here again, as friends and families were celebrating Leah's birthday, the knocks came on the fact that they're requesting and they're raising their voices as regards the federal government's lack of intervention with Leah Sharibu's case.
Mm.
Now, there are many ramifications to this because she has become the poster child of insecurity within the country. Now, it speaks of so many regards because now insecurity has redefined itself in terms of banditry, in terms of kidnapping, in terms of armed robbery, in terms of the herdsmen farmer clashes, which
Mhm.
all affect different locations within Nigeria. It's not just in the northern aspect, it covers the south and even the south. And implications are actually where I want to sound out. It's not just about Leah, one girl being kidnapped. One, it's an attack on religious freedom
Yes.
because the federal government, or it wasn't even the federal government that opened the information, it was the Agence France
Mhm.
Presse who released the information to the family that during the negotiations, that the terrorist group held her back, that was Boko Haram,
Mm.
on the accounts that she refused to convert to Islam.
Mhm.
Now, this has been muffled in some ways, but remember, these are the basic freedoms that we enjoy as citizens, which is freedom of association, freedom
Exactly.
of religious practice.
Mm.
And that's a lot of courage being shown by such a young girl. And the federal government, if not for anything, needs to ensure that they can bring this to a logical closure to ensure that they uphold the tenet that we can practice our religions and our faiths without fear. Secondly, it's an attack on the girl child education. We know very well, beyond the large numbers of out-of-school children, the girl child or the woman has been under attack recently. I mean, no gainsaying about the police, the Abuja raid on some locations simply because they were women, because the allegations or the reasons that they gave were not tenable. Boko Haram meant anti-Western education, and we know that there has been a push to try and drive the education of women, especially in the northern areas, because of empowerment, because of their contribution to the economy. The Bring Back Our Girls has been one of the top protesters to that. The foundation has also called on the First Lady to see how she can intervene, being a mother and also having girls on her own, and many civil society groups. So it is something, like I said, we speak about with great pain. Leah is still there, and I can't imagine what she's going through or having to go under in this time.
And we also need to mention the call for by some human rights groups asking the federal government to release information regarding the amount of money spent so far in efforts to,
Secure those
girls and rescue Leah Sharibu.
A whole lot. If you remember, there was even an account that was even infiltrated at some point. However, that's not even the biggest issue at this point in time. Right now, all Nigerians want is a release of Leah. If you could do for 100, please ensure that you bring back that one.
Thank you, Deveo. Let's move on very quickly to talk on this, touch on this story, Bolahan, from Thisday newspaper. The Defense Headquarters yesterday restated the loyalty of the armed forces to the 1999 Constitution as amended, and President Muhammadu Buhari, this on the heels of release or circulation of a document calling for the overthrow of the democratically elected government of the president. Now, the document was sponsored by an unnamed, well, it's a named group, but a faceless group as such. They call themselves the Nigerian Continuity and Progress. But the army is saying they're dissociating themselves from the rascality and intentions of this group that promoted this document, circulated it. But my problem really lies with the fact that the military cannot put their hands on who sponsored this document. I mean, if a document is released, there's a source, right? But your thoughts on this, Bilal?
Yes, this is quite interesting, and it's not the first time that we'll be having this rumor lingering in our government or in this country. I remember in 2017 we did have this making the mail as well, too, that there was going to be a military coup that was going to overtake, that was going to take over.
That was a rumor.
Yes, it was a rumor. And here we are again once more having that going on. It's nice to see the military, which is from the department, the
Defense
headquarters, I should say, come to show the support for democratic governance as at present at the moment now. I mean, it's something that would be quite unfashionable if we were to have. It definitely wouldn't happen anyway, because it's quite unfashionable. Looking at going across Africa, it's not something that it's very popular these days. Of course, we'll make reference to what's going on in Sudan as at present at the moment, and some other parts of Africa as well. So one thing that is for certain is that what we should be doing is looking at the perpetrators of such rumor making the news. I mean, just as I said, it's happened before, and there wasn't any logical investigation that was carried out. Here we are again. This is also happening at this present time. What exactly is the government going to do about it? What is the military going to do? What exactly is the DSS going to do about it? Because we're talking about a faceless a faceless group, just as you mentioned, and I mean, if this is making some rounds, either via WhatsApp or the internet, there must be some ways of trailing the source of this information. It's very important for the democracy. It's important for the stability of this nation to bring such perpetrators to book. Well, I mean, the military has said that they are investigating this, and they've actually reported this to the relevant authorities to look into this appropriately. I mean, people have to be brought to book. And when we have incidences of this happening, without any consequences, then we'll continue to see a repeat of this happening.
Well, here's
Sorry,
my
please,
question.
I want to ask a question.
Wait, just let me
Yes.
ask this. So, if the Defense Headquarters is going to report to
That's what I was going to
relevant
say.
authority? Because
Yes, go on, go on,
when it
go
comes
on.
to cases of security, who
Yes.
do you report to as a civilian?
No, when we're talking about, well, who do you report to? You report to the
I asked this
DSS.
question.
Yes.
Let me just share my thoughts. So I'm thinking we have cases of internet fraud, and it's easy for the relevant authorities to clamp down on the perpetrators or whoever is sponsoring such information, whoever even has an inkling to committing such act of internet fraud, and these people are apprehended within minutes or hours.
Yes.
Why is it so difficult? Are these people so mysterious that they are falling from the clouds?
I mean, it raises a lot of conspiracy theories as well, that you wonder who are the people that are behind such act. Just as the same way we're not able to bring to book those who are perpetrating of financing Boko Haram, and this has been going on for several years now. It raises a lot of questions, and it makes people have a lot of doubt in our defense system and our people and the people that are behind our security apparatus. But nevertheless, it's a collaborative effort that should come from everybody, from all the security authorities.
Okay, thank you, Bolaho. I guess we don't have the answers, right? But let's get to the part that it's a juicy story from the Guardian newspaper, because it raised a lot of eyebrows during the electioneering campaign that just ended not so long ago. One of the candidates was championing this, so it was one of his biggest mantra to make sure that Nigeria looks into legalizing cannabis for medical purposes. Now, the story is on the Guardian newspaper.
Call the name.
Exactly. I was going to say which
Call
one.
the name.
Which one?
Either Mary Jane, ganja, or marijuana. It's a plant, actually.
Indian
So the
have
politically correct words, marijuana.
Marijuana. Why are you running away?
I'm not. So the Ondo State governor yesterday, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, he has warned Nigeria. I like how they started it with this line: warned that Nigeria could lose 145 billion US dollars by 2025 over its failure to key into the global legal marijuana markets. We know it's illegal right now. But from all the statements, where do you see this getting to? Especially as he went on this trip with the NDLEA.
Of NDLEA, yes. According to the Guardian newspaper, that's what the headline says. It says how Nigeria can earn $145 billion through legal marijuana. But I'm going to start by reading his tweet. So he says, we all know that Ondo State is the hotbed of cannabis cultivation in Nigeria. We know how to grow it and thrives well in the Sunshine State. With an estimated value of 145 billion naira in 2025, we would be shortchanging ourselves if we failed to tap into the legal marijuana market. And that's what he said. And when you think that's all that it is about the story, but when you go into it, I'm going to come back to what he said. It's very, very important that we talk about what the House of Representatives actually did do yesterday by approving the draft of the National Tobacco Control Regulations. And this is very important because not only have people been talking about it, the health ministry, a lot of Nigerians and even international organizations have been talking about it. But what it does is that it gives the Federal Ministry of Health license to regulate the variants of tobacco products that exist as we speak as a nation. And without a doubt, we know that tobacco consumption has continued to kill a lot of people. The WHO is claiming that smoking is responsible for 2/3 of lung cancer deaths globally. So I personally am excited that it seems like there's going to be a lot of regulation now because there's so many things they're talking about, the display on the packets, 80% of what it is, and all that. They're trying to discourage it a lot. And the conversations have continued for such a long time about if we continue to tax heavily on these people, does it reduce the consumption?
Or does it increase demand for it?
And I remember hearing Ms. Rireti talk, and I remember very well listening. Now, it's a different question for another day. But the reality as we speak now is there is going to be a lot more regulation when it comes to tobacco products consumption in Nigeria. Now, going to Rotimi Akeredolu, without a doubt, the global market of marijuana is estimated at $150 billion US globally.
Yes.
And
it's rising.
Exactly. And marijuana has several uses: medicinal, recreational, industrial.
Yes.
People fail to talk about the industrial part. And industrial part talks about creating biodegradable things. And we've been talking about pollution for such a long time. Medicinal. I have a friend who has fibromyalgia, and we've tried for so long to look for something. Guess what? The doctors actually did recommend what we do. And the pain has reduced drastically, but the difference is under regulation.
Yes.
That's what the difference is. Now, if we take Canada, for instance, what I'm talking about is if we're going to talk about it holistically, we also need to understand that what usually happens with us is when we want to follow the world, we follow them from when they started in the 60s, forgetting that they have evolved.
60s is too close. I mean, let's go back to 1930s.
Exactly. No, but he's honest. Canada now, as we speak, is trying to not only legalize it, but trying to put some parameters. What they are saying now is they're going to ensure that it doesn't, young users are discouraged to a very large extent. The proceeds do not get into the hands of criminals. They're also talking about what's it called? Deterring the sale after a legal framework. So my question is, if we know that it's time for Nigeria to look into this, are we going to be honest about the regulations we're going to set up when we're talking about marijuana? If we're not, what we're just simply going to do is what has also been happening on the ground. Many people use it. Edibles. The stories are endless. People go for parties, cookies, whatever it is, and the list is endless. If we fail to realize that not only are we sleeping on a revenue generating machine, reality is when we do it because we just want to generate revenue, we may do it the wrong way. And if we do it the wrong way, then we're bringing on ourselves more problems.
And another question that still came up from this conversation is the fact that the governor went with the national head.
He doesn't, he can't deny that. He can't deny.
They have a state chapter. So
but he has to go with it because it's a federal law, so it's not a state law. So if we're saying that we want to look into...
He's not the governor of Nigeria. He's not the president of
He's
Nigeria.
not, but it's necessary for the boss of the NDLEA to be carried alongside what is going on. Because when it's time for us to now talk, are we not going to start saying, oh, we've been running this thing with the state, chairman, and now it's time for us to get... I love that he went with the national head of the NDLEA. Stop sleeping. Let us go. Let us see what it is we're supposed to do. Let us get our 140 Ondo, Oyo, Edo, Delta, Osun. All of us will go back to our state of origin now and start business.
Yes, so
Right, let me bring in Michael Adetutu's comment from YouTube as
please.
a form of question and clarification.
Okay.
So he says, legalizing marijuana is not an issue, but regulating it is more.
That's what I
of
said.
the- we don't have the
Regulation.
expertise in regulating such. Medicinal aspects of marijuana is key, but we're not ready because of regulation. So when we look at what's on ground at the moment, we have regulatory agencies like NAFDAC who are still trying to grapple fake drugs, distribution of medicine. And
They're still
food.
trying to deal with
They're
drug
still
abuse
trying
with
to-
tramadol and every other thing.
obviously, it's like the best of both worlds.
Yes.
But one thing I want to sound out is that the governor not only went with the NDLA head, he said that NDLA would supervise the growing if they were to allow this to happen, so that at the end of the day, the NDLA will be part of the process to the end to ensure that abuse is not.
But do you think that we will do that successfully?
Well,
We can only try.
In a world where we're trying to be stiffer in terms of trying to pass the message to discourage tobacco consumption, it's interesting that we're now calling to we're still dealing with a lot of other addictions, and we're trying to bring in marijuana or legalize it.
I just want to make a mention. There is a big company, I'm not going to mention their name. They have been growing in this country for some years. And some farmers have been making off with some good money. And it has been controlled to a large extent. So I don't think the learning is far off. It's just for us to synergize to ensure that we can do this properly.
All right, guys,
those who
you.
know.
And then somebody sent in a message with his name as Shiloh's daddy. He says, Shobo marijuana exports, it's a Wakanda something. Okay, guys, thank you. Felix Ayanwo sent in a message, said the federal government should do everything possible to release Leah Sharibu from captivity. And Cheryl here on WhatsApp also says, she said, don't sleep on it. Okay, Cheryl, we see you. Very quickly, let's touch on this story. Adenike Oyetunde, our vice president, has said that there is no reason why any Nigerian should have to give bribe to law enforcement agents for obtaining driver's licenses or passports or to clear goods at ports. Now, wow. So if you're taking it piece by piece, it's a major issue. But now bringing all this together, it seems like he's shaking a lot of tables. But take us through this story very quickly, please. Yes, he is. Because we know that all these areas, first of clearing goods at ports, obtaining driver's licenses. Come on.
See, I really don't want to go into everything that this Vanguard report is saying, but like you mentioned, driver's license, passport, and clearing goods at the port. I'm asking every single Nigerian who can hear me, those in the studio and those driving wherever it is.
Yes.
Have you never not paid to get any of these things fast-tracked for you?
No, don't ask us. You're not.
No, you're not going to see them. See their safety consciences. See consciences.
Because
I
it
actually
goes down to a systemic problem.
I actually do not want an answer. And that is just a reflection of what this statement is bouncing off of. Reality is that what is the federal government doing in ensuring that these processes are seamless? The federal government, I remember Dr. Joaba on Twitter go all out about, he tried to renew his license online and blah, 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 blah. Very beautiful. Someone went on Twitter 2 weeks after to say, Doctor, this thing you told me to do,
it does not work.
It's a huge mess.
Yes.
And I know many people who attempted to doing it and it was a huge mess. So that for the vice president to say that there is no need, I'm asking him what steps is the federal government setting in place ensuring that these processes are seamless? What steps has the federal government set up to pick up defaulters, both givers and takers? And who is going to penalize these people if and when they are caught?
Consequences.
Exactly. So if we're saying don't pay, let's stop.
So don't pay.
It starts from the top.
Let's stop it.
It's almost designed.
It is designed to frustrate you because take for instance, we're just talking driver's license. Take NYSC. The system. Take
PVC.
I tried to register a company last year, and I can tell you that even the documentation, EFCC, we're still running around in paper document. They're opening files for you in 2018, 2019. Come on, you guys.
I mean, your last election was conducted on
Thank you
Excel
very much,
sheet,
Adenike.
so-
Now, let's move very quickly to the next one. Bola, and I haven't heard your voice, so let me come to you for this one. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has fined the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company 300 million naira. Why? Because their negligence led to the death of a 4-year-old male child in Niger State. Can you just quickly touch on this story?
Yes, let me start by saying condolences to the family of Master Mohammed Arafat Jibril, who was electrocuted in their estate in Niger State. I mean, this unfortunate incident happened sometime in April 2019, 11th of April. And the NERC has now done their investigation, and they found Abuja Electricity Disco Company culpable of not protecting their assets. And this, we'll normally find this lying everywhere on the street anyway, where you walk on the street and then you see a lot of transformers, electric meters just lying around, not protected. There's no fences protecting it, so anyone can easily walk into it. And of course, we know the dangers of electricity. So this happened on that unfortunate day where the young man just walked into it and he was electrocuted. So after that, the investigation was carried out by NERC, and the findings by NERC was that they found out that the area wasn't protected. And
there wasn't a door.
There wasn't any door. There wasn't any protection. No, it wasn't locked either. So, and under section 1326 part 4 of the distribution code, it actually stipulates that all electricity providers should actually protect their installations with preventing public access and people from getting access into it. Then secondly, the other issue that they also did have under the health and safety code of the electricity health and safety code, they were also meant to do a preliminary reporting of findings 72 hours after an incident, but the disco didn't do that reporting. So eventually they were ultimately fined 300 million naira. And part of the reasons why they were fined 300 million naira is, I mean, Abuja Electricity Disco have been culpable of this offense over time. It's actually reported in this report that they have actually, over the spread of 1 year between 2018 and 2019, they have recorded 9 deaths, 2 burns, and a
That's
fall within their
shameful.
premises. So they're really not taking the health and safety incidents seriously. They need to do more, a lot more on health and safety. But the funny thing I find about this report is that we're talking about a 300 million naira fine. Now, a breakdown of this fine: 50 million naira goes to the family of the lost, of the bereaved, and 250 million naira actually goes to NERC. And now I ask myself this question: who's actually lost more? Is it NERC, or who's the victim here? Is it NERC, or is it the family?
All right.
I mean, this sounds like a revenue generation to me.
All right, thank you very much, Balan, for that. Adenike, let me come to you for this news story. Yesterday, we saw it trending on social media. US reviews visa renewal process.
Hey,
So, in summary, many of us are familiar with the Dropbox process. If you have visited the US in the past, you just have to Dropbox when you need to renew.
Yeah.
But the US is saying that no, they're introducing interviews. Adenike, please, can you?
Okay, so one of the things that they're saying is they're trying to encourage and promote legitimate travel. And again, every single one of us, person who can hear me, I'm sure you know at least one person who has failed to return back on a 2-year visa, a 2-year visiting visa, or you know someone who's planning to
go to the US.
exactly.
By the time they cross from B1 to B1, B2.
You know, that's what it is. And the reality is we're failing to speak to ourselves. We all know that many people would rather leave this place for a place that works, not necessarily for greener pastures in code, but a system that works. And for that reason, when people just do this, you wonder, you are jeopardizing the chances for people who want to legitimately just travel and come back.
Yes.
And visit.
You know, and it's harder. But very quickly, let me tell you what it is. Now, Nigerians by nationality across Africa has had the highest number of non-immigrant visa issuance. In Nigeria, we had 132,000. In South Africa, 51. Now, for overstaying in the US, Brazil, over 36,000. Venezuela, 35,000, and Nigeria, 29,000 of them. And that is what they are trying to. Exactly. But look at who they are comparing us with, Brazil and Venezuela. And that is what they're trying to clamp down against.
Yes.
What is our government going to say? How much can the government talk about now in this instance? Because reality is now, if the US is claiming that it wants to promote legitimate travel, then who are we to say don't?
All right.
Do you suspect?
I just want to link that in. Sorry, because of our time, I have to be really strict on this. But just as I mentioned, one of the headlines is that the reps have rejected a bill to regulate overseas medical treatment. Just to see how that relates, they're trying to stop us from traveling, for illegitimate reasons, and we're trying to make sure that we are traveling for medical tourism. All right, let me go to Deveo for the next story. Deveo, I'll come to you. Buhari says relationship with 8th Assembly was difficult. New Telegraph has this report, and allow you to take us through this story, please.
Okay, well, he was having the itfa, that's the breaking of the fast during this Ramadan with the 8th National Assembly leadership. And after the meal, I think the senior special assistant did make a release of how relationship with the 8th Assembly was quite not its best, and that they're looking forward to a future level of integration. Now, those are big words that captured a lot of thunderstorm and rift that took place, which we all witnessed and were part of. Now, who's laughing last at the end of the day from a political point of view? We all knew what took place during the elections and how even the Senate leader was pitched against the executive. Now, should our politics be about do or die?
Yes.
What we've seen is a lot of party politics now interfering with the normal duties of official work, because we know this issue started around the time when the legislators on their own rebelled from their own party and elected their own leadership, which now in turn went through turns of different rifts in terms of court cases. We had flashpoints around the budget delays and reviews, the consistency project authorization as to who is meant to authorize that or not, executive legislative division of labor, disharmony in terms of some of the officers being arrested and harassed by police, the equality of relevance, stature, and independence. Remember that issue also came up when the CJ was under fire. Can the executive actually put out any other person? Is there an equilibrium between the legislative, the judiciary, and the executive? Who bears the mandates of the people at the end of the day? Now, the truth is, these are issues that would continue to ring and cause problems if this new assembly coming in does not work in tandem with the executive. Now, working in tandem simply means the executive are the ones that have been elected, right?
Yes.
But the legislator, their duty is to empower, their duty is to check, their duty is to ensure that they give the executive the empowerment in the interest of the people. Now that brings
That's
us,
the key
yes,
word
that
right
brings us
there,
back to
interest
the
of
whole crux
people.
of this matter. Was this fight, was all this higi haga all about you and me, or was it about themselves?
Thank you very much. Interest of the people, I think that's a great way to, let that stay on our minds. Are these people working our interests, whether executive, legislature, or the judiciary level?
I'm afraid that's the last story we can touch on today. Blessing sent in a message on WhatsApp, said, "This is our country. NERC is taking 5 times the compensation to be paid for loss of life. What manner of people are these?" And then Benga Akamu sent in a message on WhatsApp very quickly, says the presidency is not blameless in the troubles with the Senate. And Trudy says, "Why is the US a visa issue?" as a headline news. Algorithms are used in determining your drug box renewal in the first place. Same result is presented to consular officer when doing live interviews when you fill applications online. If the system has denied you, then you're just there for formality, just making process more harassing for travelers. Those that want to abuse their visa will still abuse if given. Emmanuel, thank you very much for that message. And do join us next in 14 minutes as we talk sports inside of the locker room. Special thanks to Adenike, who have got a campaign ongoing on WhatsApp right now. They're asking you to come every day. And Deveo, thank you so much.
Thank you
for being here. And Bolahan, special thanks to you
Thank
too.
you.
Good morning, ladies.